Alright, welcome to the Virginia School of Traditional Arts. Today we're going to be making this, I guess for a better word, a coronavirus mask. This is what the CDC is recommending for everybody to wear, a cotton mask. Still see a thread on this one. So we're going to go through the steps on how to make this. The reason I'm showing this video is that I looked up lots of videos and lots of patterns, and the folks that I was seeing were not very efficient with their materials. They were giving you measurements that does not work out good on standard cloth, or at least the cloth I had was not going to work out. We're going to have lots of scraps and lots of waste. So what I'm going to go through is how to do it and do it efficiently, effectively, and not have any waste. You're going to use every bit of your materials. Save if you're going to use a t-shirt like I do, you can't use where the pocket is and where the seams are, but the rest of it is there's virtually zero waste on it. The way I found to do our cloth for our mask, the most efficient way is if you line it up on your board, on your cutting mat, and get the lines, vertical lines on the edges. And then what I generally do to cut us a straight, this you don't have to do this for the first piece, but then you take your little board here, your ruler, and you line it up on the bottom and cut you a straight line across, which I've already done. And then we pull that edge down, keeping it together, of course. Pull that down to edge to the bottom of your cutting mat. This is a double layer of fabric. It's folded in half. I've got a board here that's about 8 3/4 inches. I'm going to use that as my template when I want to cut, and I'm going to use my yardstick. And so we move our template, and all my board there has done is made it straight and allowed me to measure quickly. And then we'll cut that off. And of course we would do this repeatedly over and over again. We're just going to do one to show you today. Cut all your pieces like this, and then you bring them back, and we're going to line it up on that edge again. And I use a little square here, and we're going to cut off our rough edge here, and I use it as a square at this point because our material is pretty square. So we're just going to cut off our edge that doesn't look good. Trim that up. I don't want to cut my table. And then we come over here, and this ruler, this square has measurements on it, and so we want to be about 7 inches, approximately 7 inches, 7 1/4 from the end. We can scoot it up to the next line, to the first line. It helps, gives us some room to cut. That'll help. About 7 inches. If we're doing this correctly, when you measure this piece, yeah, you're 14 1/2, so we can go just a smidge more than 7. Try to keep our square straight. So if you do this correctly, we're going to have 14 and about 3/8, 14 inches thereabouts is what we're after. We're going to cut it this side. And so what we end up with is we have 2 pieces here, and then we have this third piece, and it's doubled over, but it's the third piece, and it should be, doesn't have to be exact size, but similar size. So we want them to be this is a one-of-a-kind thing, so a similar size like that. So that's the most efficient way to cut your fabric that I have found. We have no waste. We have only this waste, which we're going to cut off anyway. And so that's the most efficient way that I have found. Our little board here helps us in that it's lining us up straight and parallel with the edge, and that it's always the same width. So this is the most efficient way I found to do the mask with no waste. And so once you have these pieces, so each 8.5, 8 3/4 inch wide strip will allow you 3 masks. And then if you're doing this, the normal black or normal t-shirts with no seam up the side, 1 3/4 inch strip across will give you 3 of these ties. And so as you can see very quickly, you can produce your materials to make your mask. Alright, to make the ties we use a t-shirt type material. You can buy the material. I just didn't have any on hand, so we're using this t-shirt. And we want to cut about a 3/4 inch strip of this, and it doesn't have to be exact. This is the portion that had the pocket, so the pocket's not viable for this. If you're down here lower, we were getting strips that were twice as long, and so you could get 2 ties out of each strip. And what you're wanting is a tie that looks like this. It looks kind of round. Well, what you're going to do is we're going to cut these 3/4 inch strips, and I'll show you how to make it round. And we've got a cutting mat and a rotary cutter. That makes it the easiest. Just a straight edge. But then there's your strip, and our strip is approximately 11 inches long, 10, 11 inches long. And we want one that's going to be approximately 15 inches long when we're done. So to make it round, all you do is you stretch it and you pull it a little bit on the ends, especially. And then there's your tie. And by stretching it, we've got it to be, that was 11 inches long, so it's say 19 now. So that's plenty long for your ties. And there's no exact measurement to these. You know, between 15 and 20 inches is good length. If you have t-shirts, this one had a seam down the side, so I had to cut the seam off. But if you have t-shirts that don't have collars, they most likely won't have a seam, and you can cut all the way across double layer. And I was stretching those out like this, and then they were longer, and then we would just make 3 ties out of that. So it looks like they would be longer, of course, but you do that, and then you'd cut it here and here, and you'd have 3 equal length ties, and they were running about 16 inches. And that's where the black ones came from. So for each mask, you'll need 4 ties. First step to making your mask is you've cut your materials out now. You got to fold your mask in half with the good side on the inside. Set up your sewing machine. You can sew these by hand just as easy. Well, not just as easy, but as easy. And on my sewing machine, I want to leave a space here in the middle open. So on my sewing machine, I just use this little gold edge here. And when I get to that, I stop. Back stitch first. Alright, so that's the first step. And we do this on both sides, of course. stitched this pretty good because this, what the corners they're pulling on when they tie it is this corner here. That's going to be your loose corner. Alright. And so that's what you get to start with. And then the next step is what you can trim off your threads here. And the next step is what takes a little bit of time. And that's placing your ties in here. And alright, that's what you have. You got a line sewn here and a line sewn here. You trimmed off your excess threads. We're going to open this up. Normally do this on the table, it's a little easier. And you're going to get this seam in the middle best you can, and we're just going to finger press this thing down. And then we're going to open up our little seam. Just push on that a little bit. You can use an iron, that's very acceptable, no trouble. But I don't generally do it. And we have 4 ties. You need 4 ties, I guess is what you need. And I generally level up one end. And we open this up in the center. And I've got one hand through each side, and then I'm reaching in here and I'm going to get a hold of 2 ties in each hand. I don't know if y'all can see that. 2 ties coming out of each side. I'm going to bring one of those ties up to the top, and I generally let a 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch stick out so you can make sure you're seeing it. And then over here for a second, one at the bottom. And you can pin these or clamp these. They got little I don't know what they call them, little clamps anymore, but just little things that hold it still. I generally don't do that. If I do all that kind of stuff, it takes more time. And if we're trying to produce these effectively, time is an issue. Alright, and we just take the rest of them and gather them up here. We've got those to the edges. Got those to the edges. And as you can see, I've got it sticking out just a little teeny bit. We're going to line this up. And when we sew this portion, we want to sew back and forth across this tie here a couple of times so that it's secured well. So there was twice. There, 4 stitches across that tie. On our seam, we got a choice. We can open it up or we can lay it over flat. Most of the time I'm just going to lay it over flat. It doesn't, not a critical thing. And then we get down here to the end, we're going to do the same thing on our I'll put a few stitches in that so it'll hold good. That side done. Alright, we've sewn our first piece. We're going to set up our second piece. Again, we're going to sew across of our tie several times to make sure it's secured. Get the heavy foot once in a while. And again, we're going to sew across this one several times. Okay, so we've got that. Alright, at this point we've got the seam sewed on the sides. Next step is we're going to cut off our corners, not to cut your threads now, but we're just going to cut off this excess material, and that way our corner will fold nice. And then you just turn this inside out. And you pull on the ties and make the corners pop. And again, if you want to, you can press this with your iron. I don't do that either. Alright, this side has made your pocket for your extra filtration. So we're going to turn that over. Pocket side is down. We're going to take and we're going to fold a pleat in this. This is about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. Again, the measurements, as long as it's straight, the measurements are not crucial. And so we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to make these pleats look as similar as we can, something like that, just so it looks nice. And I just pin in the middle one time, and that holds the pleat for me, and then I press it with my hand a little bit, and it allows me to adjust it as if I need to without taking the pins out. And then the tricky thing is these ties want to pull on you when you're sewing, so you got to get those kind of ahead of you so they're not messing with you when you're doing your sewing. And then so we're just going to sew back across this. He says. And then when you get down here, make sure you're holding your pleat in the right place. Alright, and I'm going to make sure this looks straight on the second pleat. My machine likes to go fast. It doesn't like to go slow. Get to the end, we'll come back. Alright. And so, normally I'd want to flip this around and keep my piece up here on the top, but if you do that, your pleats are running the wrong way, so you got to switch over and let it stick off the outside. And again, get your ties ahead of the game here, or they'll pull on you and mess you up. And then check your pleats, make sure they're looking right and straight. And before you get to that first one, you can always adjust it a little bit, if need be. towel off of it. And pull your pins out. And that's your mask. Now you can trim off all the extra little threads, make it look neat. And of course you can iron this and make it look real crisp and all that kind of deal. But back here is your pocket. So you can add your stuff in your pocket. And for filtration, you can do coffee filters, you can do folded up paper towels, you can do extra bandana or extra cotton, you can do HEPA filters, whatever you've got that you can stick down in here, give you a little extra thickness basically. And that's your mask done. Alright, we've completed our mask. If you've liked what you've seen today and would like to subscribe and like and comment, and if you got suggestions, love to hear it. You know, if you've got a better way than doing it than this, I'd like to see it. This is the most efficient way I could figure to do this. And right now the country's needing these produced. And if you've got a sewing machine, this sewing machine here is nearly 100 years old. It's a Singer. We typically don't sew cloth with it. We sew leather with it. That's what I purchased it for the school. We make lots of sheaths and leather goods, and that's what we use it for. But it's perfectly good to sew cloth. So anyhow, if you've liked what you've seen, give us the thumbs up, give us a like, ring the bell. You'll see the other videos. Have a good day and be safe. Interested in purchasing masks? You can find us on our Etsy. We'll put that down in the description.